as a child, my first passion in life was horses. And if I wasn't out galloping around some field, I was aspiring one day to become an international show jumper. But you see, the real dream was to be able to compete for my country. My other passion was athletics, and I found out along the way that I was quite good at the high jump. So that's two sports that I could potentially represent my country in. So I was like, yeah, this is looking good. Now, being realistic, the chances of your junior sports career transferring to senior level is quite slim, so I kept this in mind. As a young teen, I was fortunate enough to have teachers that really cared about my passions and interests. There was one particular teacher, my home ec teacher, Miss Woollahan, who came to me when I was in 4th year with an application for the Gaisce 4-day Defence Forces Grueling Challenge. And this was 4 days with the army, living outdoors, abseiling, orienteering, rock climbing, just full-on action-packed 4 days. And she said to me, Grace, this would really suit you. So I applied and I was accepted. And I remember on completing this, I very much had my heart set on a career with the army. That's what I wanted to do with my life. So I did my first interview with the army when I left school, and unfortunately I wasn't successful. That's okay. We're not supposed to get it right first time. So I took a year out before I went to college, and I applied for the army a second time. I was unsuccessful this time as well. So I decided I couldn't keep my life on hold much longer. I needed to get on with my life. So I went to college in the UK where I got a sports and exercise science degree. When I came home, I had one final time to apply for the army before I got too old. This time, I was unsuccessful also. Heartbroken and at a bit of a loose end, I didn't really know what to do with my life. So I decided to use my sports and exercise science degree to try work with athletes and work with teams and sports. And I was applying for jobs left, right and centre, and it was constantly, no, you don't have enough experience, come back to us when you've got more experience. And it was a little bit of a catch. It was like, how am I supposed to get experience if you don't give me experience? And it was just constant rejection after rejection. So I said, feck it, I'm going to employ myself. And that's exactly what I did. I started my first company, Ireland's first luxury sportswear brand. And myself and my business partner killed it for about 9 months. But unfortunately, we didn't see eye to eye at a certain stage and we had to go separate ways. But I had all the experience of setting up a company right from the start. I couldn't just put this to waste. So I went again for business number 2. This was an innovative equestrian product, and this was fantastic. I got so much experience and knowledge in the world of business. I got funding from Enterprise Ireland, and this allowed me to really work at it and research it for a few months. But funding doesn't last forever, right? So this slowly came to an end also. But lads, I have experience and knowledge of setting up 2 companies in 2 totally different sectors. I definitely couldn't stop now. So I went for round 3, corporate wellness. This has been great, tipped away nicely, but unfortunately it's a competitive industry, so that's kind of winding down now as well. So, you're up to date with my life so far. Well, almost. So for those of you who don't know, I recently took part in RTE's Special Forces Ultimate Hellweek, and this really was a week of hell. I don't know, is there many of you that have seen it? Oh, yeah, a few of you, yeah. And the funny thing is, it was my mum that got me to sign up. Yeah, I must have been a really well child, right? So I want to share with you the lessons in life I learned in hell. I have 4 life lessons. So number 1, life can be heavy. So one of the challenges was a 21k hike up Tunlegi Mountain, which you saw there. The total weight was almost 27 kg between our backpack, our bar, our water, and all our kit. Or sorry, it was 27 kg, and I'm about 60 kg. So that's almost half my body weight, right? There were men there that were, twice my size, far stronger, but there were no concessions given for the female athlete. Sometimes when things go wrong for me, or I've been through difficult times, I'm sure like many of you think, why do I get weighed down so much more than others? Why do other people seem to get it so much easier? But in that moment on the mountain, I had a choice. The choice was to carry both the physical weight that I was carrying and the emotional weight of the negative thoughts, or I could shut those thoughts down. I shut those thoughts down and I became the first female to ever complete that 21 kg hike. Life isn't always fair, and most of the time there are no concessions. If you want to achieve your dreams, whatever that may be for you, well, you need to let go of the seemingly injustices and the weight of the emotional baggage, because guys, life is hard enough as it is. Now, speaking of not comparing, the second life lesson. If you are going to make comparisons, then they can only be relative to you. So, the funny thing about hell is it's always depicted as fire and brimstone. Well, for me, hell is the freezing cold. It was so cold. During Hellweek, I have never felt the cold as bad. And it's the kind of cold that seeps into your skin, deep within your bones, and makes your fingers and toes go numb. And just to give you an idea, on the next challenge, 4 of the recruits were taken off due to hypothermia. So we had to crawl through these freezing cold rocky puddles for 3 hours. And as I was there, freezing cold, I began to wonder how cold this was relative to the coldest I've ever been. So I stopped myself as I was about to come to my next life lesson. This was in a different league. This was incomparable to anything I've ever felt before. And I started to measure my capacity to endure the cold, so wait for it, relative or not to whether I was dying. So that line, if it doesn't kill you, yeah. I had to ask myself, Grace, are you going to die here? And as long as I wasn't dying, I was going to keep trying. And it made me question ever since how I define giving my all. What is my all? And what am I willing to measure it against? For me, it's about being in the moment, being totally present, being totally dedicated to what I am doing. See, there's a difference between giving it our all and giving all of our time. Nobody should give all of their time to one thing, but we should be giving our all during that time. And on that point about time, I'm brought neatly to the next of my life lessons, to wait and see what the next 3 minutes hold. You see, life can change in an instant, sometimes for the worse and sometimes for the better. But if I could just hold on a few minutes longer, then maybe things would get better. And to be fair, that might be a little optimistic given the situation I was in, but here's how I arrived at my next lesson. So day 2, and I'm only there by the skin of my teeth. So the first night was an 8-mile loaded march, and this was so hard, and we had full weight, and it was 4 miles one way, 4 miles the other way, so psychologically it was really, really hard. And I found out that I only had seconds to get over the line. I was nearly cut the first night. So you can imagine, the self-doubt was overwhelming. I failed to get into the army 3 times, and as the challenges got harder, I was wondering, maybe they were right, maybe I'm not tough enough. I didn't want to quit, but I really wasn't sure if I could keep going. The possibility of quietly slipping off my armband and handing it over with the words, "I dropped out," was so tempting, but there was something inside me that resisted. And I said to myself, Grace, just wait 3 more minutes. Grace, see if you can go 3 more minutes, and maybe another 3 after that. In this moment, it became very clear that this wasn't an athletics competition. This wasn't a challenge. This was life. You see, we never know what the future holds, and sometimes, in the thick of it, in the coldest, darkest moments, quitting can seem like the only thing to do. But if we just give it a few more minutes, if we can get through this, then things will get better. Crawling through the cold, muddy, rocky puddles, climbing up the mountains, hours of interrogation, whether physical or mental challenges, I knew deep down that it would get better. I knew the hardest parts were going to pass, and I would be warm again. And I would be able to feel my fingers and toes, and I would get sleep, and I would get food again. I just had to get through the next 3 minutes. And all of that is true. Everything did get better. Des and I were the only two standing on the final day, on the final night. Against all odds, we got further than men twice our size and people that were far fitter than us. You see, we were never competing against them. We were competing against ourselves. We endured everything that they threw at us, but we did not win. We survived. There was no prize, no medal, just the honor of survival. And there it is, folks, the final lesson. Success and failure, winning and losing, they are just moments. Nobody wins at life. Life is about enduring it, enjoying it, getting to the end, having given it your best shot, to have carried your weight, take it minute by minute, and know that on the last day and the last night, you have given it all that you can give. I tried for my dream job 3 times. I started up 3 companies that weren't the most successful. But I always learned what I could and moved on. By carrying this attitude through Hellweek, I became the first female in Irish history to pass all elements of the Ranger selection process. You see, in life, we don't always get to experience our childhood dreams or our previous dreams, but we can certainly use them as a driving force to achieve new ones. Thank you.